Hi, everyone. I'm Mallory Safaste with WMAR 2 News. Thank you for joining our live Facebook chat on unemployment. We've been receiving a lot of calls, emails, comments. We know a lot of you are still having a lot of issues. So this will be a chance for you to ask your questions from some of the Facebook admins who have expertise in this area, but we also have the House Speaker, Adrienne Jones, and State Senate President Bill Ferguson, who are joining us live now. And I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to say hello to the people who are joining us who still have questions. And if you have any updates from the Department of Labor as far as resolving what's been going on. And Speaker Jones, if you want to start.
Certainly. Good afternoon, everyone. And thanks to WMAR and everyone watching on Facebook Live. The Senate President and I both have been keenly aware of the state's unemployment challenges and have been personally invested in addressing these issues. We sent letters to state and federal leaders urging them to do more. Earlier this month, the Senate held a UI hearing and the House held a hearing with the Labor Secretary to try to get answers as to why the Beacon system continues to leave people in Maryland without benefits. We understand that these are extraordinary times, and many of our state agencies have been overwhelmed. The Department of Labor alone saw a 5,000% increase in applicants. All of our state agencies face unprecedented challenges, but we have to meet these challenges. It's our obligation to the people of this state. The Department of Labor has taken steps to address these issues, like extending their call hours, hiring more employees, and streamlining their application process. But the system hasn't been fixed. Processing claims is too slow. Many people are awaiting adjudication, and the weekly certification process has been sluggish. The Labor Secretary reported that 135,000 people haven't received their UI benefits. That's almost 1/3 of all applications received. This isn't just a data point, it represents real people who are out of work, can't pay their bills or feed their families. The Senate President and I sent a letter to Leader McConnell and Speaker Pelosi asking them to provide federal assistance to state and local governments so we can better support our residents. The state could potentially lose billions of dollars in revenue that could impact unemployment insurance. And everyone knows these benefits are costly. Our role in government is to support people in their lowest moments and support them to get back on their feet. If we can't do that, we're failing. The bottom line is that we need to do better. I want to thank you again for inviting us today, and I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Jones. Senate President Bill Ferguson, is there anything you'd like to add?
Sure. Thank you, Mallory, and great to see you virtually, Speaker Jones. We have been working collaboratively on this problem with senators from both parties, Republican senators, Democratic senators, and I know that the Speaker has been in the same situation in the House. I want to thank WMAR for hosting this gathering. I think it's really important that Marylanders have the opportunity to express their frustration and what they're feeling. 2 weeks ago, the Senate hosted a sort of an open town hall to hear from a number of Marylanders. We had a sign-up sheet that we posted online, and within 72 hours, we had over 1,100 people sign up to testify. And these are folks who generally are not as engaged in participating, coming to Annapolis to express their frustration about a problem. It was people that are facing desperate circumstances that are really unacceptable. And I am very sympathetic to the department, to the administration. This is a totally unforeseen, unprecedented challenge. But I do think it's really important that we remember that this is a challenge that to some degree is of our own making. If you look back 6 years ago and you look at the Department of Labor and where we were to where we are, there was a 30% reduction in staff for the unemployment division. That is we are now, those chickens are coming home to roost. And so when you have to rebuild a department in the middle of a pandemic while you're trying to put a new technology system in place, these problems unfortunately are foreseeable. And so I think that's what we're facing. The House followed our hearing the next day with the secretary. And for the very first time, 9 weeks into this crisis, we learned that there were 135,000 Marylanders who were stuck in an adjudication process. That is unbelievable, and it's unacceptable. There have got to be ways to waive certain rules, and there have been some changes made and some improvements here and there. But the letter that the Senate sent, and I know that the House sent, tried to aggregate a lot of the common concerns that we've been hearing and recommend some changes. We're here 10 days later with still no response from the department to these concerns. That doesn't work. And it's not about responding to the speaker and I, it's about responding to the hundreds of thousands of Marylanders who are really just trying to put food on their table. The stories that we hear, I have over 200 individuals in my district that we're tracking. This isn't just people who, are missing a check here and there. These are people who, after 6, 8, 10 weeks, are trying to make sure that they have baby formula for their kids, that they can pay their rent so they don't get kicked out of their home. These problems are very, very real. And our staff in the House and the Senate, from hearing all of these claims, and God thank the frontline workers of the Department of Labor who are trying their best to hear a lot of these and try and fix these problems. But there's only so much they can handle. Just like our staff, they're just getting overwhelmed with the pain that is out there from this experience, and something's got to give.
I do want to mention that I invited the Department of Labor and Sagitech to join this discussion. I didn't hear back from either of them. And as far as not receiving a response yet to your letters, what are next steps?
I would say venues like this are really important so that members of the public have the opportunity to explain, so that it draws attention to the problem. I don't think that the department in any way is ignoring the problem. The issue is apologizing doesn't put food on the table. And that's the key, is that the problems have to be fixed. We've seen from other states that have had different systems that have not had this level of challenge getting benefits to individuals who deserve them. And we think that the pressure needs to continually be put on the agency to find solutions to these problems.
And I know that you all are being flooded by emails from constituents too, in their individual issues. Should people reach out to their local delegates, their local state senator? Will that help at all? And are you in frequent communication with anyone who can handle their issues?
Yes, they members, the public needs to be in contact with their particular delegate or senator. And we have been constantly demanding answers every week. We're putting the pressure on, but ultimately, as the old expression, the buck stops here, in terms of the governor's office, to make sure that this has been corrected. Because we get frustrated when we were telling people that we're working on it, and it's not getting resolved. So we're going to continue to demand these answers.
And I'd add, I think the speaker and I both stand in partnership with the 188 members of the General Assembly. We just want to solve the problems. From our perspective, this isn't about blame. There's plenty of time down the road to figure out what went wrong. Plenty of time. Right now, it's about getting relief to people who need it so badly. And so, I think even though hopefully, the frustration that we feel is minuscule to what people in Maryland are feeling on a daily basis that are scared. And so this isn't sort of about politics. It's just, we got to fix this problem.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you very much to both of you for joining us, for, spending some time. I think it does make a difference to know that you all are doing what you can to get answers. I've also been trying every day to try to get answers from the Department of Labor and haven't received any response. I also want to know too, the number of pending claims. The number that they gave us is 2 weeks old. Has it changed at all? And I haven't been able to receive that answer. So I will also keep working on it, but thank you for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we switch to the Q&A with some of the Facebook admins?
No, just thank you for putting this information out there. We'll keep fighting with everyone to make sure that everyone gets the benefits that they deserve, and this problem can be fixed.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to transition to the Q&A. So thank you very much for your live comments so far. We are going to try to get through some of them. So right now we are joined by Tim Graham and Dave Seal from the Baltimore Restaurant Relief Facebook group, and Stephanie Adams, the creator of the Maryland Unemployment DIY Real Answers group. So thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
And I just want to start, Dave, Tim, Stephanie, do you each want to give just like a quick summary of how your group started and, you know, what your goal is?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay, Mallory?
Yep, gotcha.
So Tim and I are part of the Baltimore Restaurant Relief Group. I started the Baltimore Restaurant Relief Group on March 16th, basically in response to my own questions, and I knew that we were going to need a lot of answers, and it's really just kind of evolved from there. You know, I work very closely with the restaurant industry in Baltimore, and a lot of my friends are in the restaurant industry here in Baltimore, and they were a group that has certainly been impacted significantly due to the pandemic. Obviously, the ripple effects of all of the closures have happened, and I know many of those folks are with Stephanie and getting answers with Stephanie as well. You know, our focus really has been to mainly focus on affecting change and helping restaurant workers and restaurant owners within that industry. Tim has helped primarily in that group with unemployment. You know, we've evolved our group into a nonprofit, the Baltimore Restaurant Relief Fund, but still, you know, within the group, a large focus of the resources that we provide and is answering questions on unemployment, which I probably answer hundreds of questions each day.
Stephanie, do you want to talk about your group real quick?
Absolutely. So I am the creator of the group. I initially made the group because my restaurant, I actually worked at the National Harbor, closed unbeknownst to COVID-19. Just so happened 2 days later it hit, and the group just kind of, like Dave said, evolved from there. It took on its own form. I have since then got on some admins, some moderators, just kind of make sure that the post topics are kept up. I try to maintain the page as a resource as best as possible. Like Tim has been kind of talking about earlier, a lot of people just need a place to vent, a place to talk about what they're going through and know that they're not alone, because this is difficult. Nobody expected this. So, you know, these restaurants and, you know, these other industries that were thriving are now reduced to, you know, being a prisoner of the state, basically trying to figure out how to navigate through getting our unemployment benefits. There's so many different situations and stories, and I knew that I personally wouldn't have the answer to them all, but I didn't want to cancel the page. So that's when I started the post topics and, you know, making sure that we did daily posts and kind of making it more of like an actual do-it-yourself virtual page. So that's the story of my group.
Thank you very much. And let's start with questions. I want to go to Elizabeth's first. Or actually, here's one right here from Stephanie. I've been in touch with my delegate and they've done all they can. Dollar said, I have to continue to wait for a phone interview. I filed April 1st, 2020, and they told me if I get denied, then I have to apply for PUA and wait even longer for that. I also hear about, you know, having to wait for phone interviews and not getting anything in the mail or over the phone. So what do you guys tell people if they're in that situation?
Unfortunately, I personally have to tell people the same things that our senator and our delegate just told us, which is It's coming. You gotta, wait on the phones. There's no real answer to any of these questions. We need support. There needs to be somebody that's accountable so that we can get the answers to these questions. We are mere civil servants during these pandemics. And if our people that we have in power don't have answers, we're not going to have anything close but support. So that's really, unfortunately, what I tell people almost 100 times a day.
Mallory, I'll comment on that. I do know that interviews are happening. Department of Labor has ensured me and others that interviews are happening. But, in terms of speeding that process up, they are trying to pre-call people, which basically is, instead of having the letter sent out and so on and so forth, they're basically skipping the step of, of sending that letter out, and then they're calling people directly. So hopefully that speeds the process up a little bit, but at the same time, in the way that I've talked to Tim about it, in the same way that, if you get into a car accident and your, insurance person had to figure out what the story was, there's a lot of stakeholders involved in this. And so they have to really try and figure out, what the story is between different people. I saw someone in my group today who, was hired by Amazon. She went to Amazon. They had a shift that she couldn't work, and it was not what she was originally hired for. And so now so she had to leave, and she said, I can't work here if I can't work this shift that you're giving me. And then basically now she has to wait for an interview. So it is very problematic, and there's multiple bottlenecks. But that's
right.
Unfortunately the process that they have to undergo in order to make sure that all of these stories are straight, and so on and so forth.
If someone's waiting for an interview, do you recommend they keep trying to call, or just?
In all honesty, I don't think it's gonna. If they've called and they know that an interview is potentially coming, it's not going to speed up the process.
Yeah, the people that are answering the phones are not the same people that are doing the adjudication for the interviews. Problem is, we don't know who's doing those interviews or when. I think the latest number we have is 22,000 interviews are pending. They've got to get these scheduled. They've got to get some kind of, give us a half an hour window. Just they have everyone's dates. They know who's pending. Like, they just have to give us some answer as to how they're going to knock them out. Then we hear all these horror stories that someone missed the call and that was their chance, like they left them a message. They can't get called back on that number because it reroutes them. Like they're in trouble. So, they have to stop I think that me, Stephanie, Dave, we all agree that the less people we can get calling, the more we can kind of triage people before they clog up the system, the better. And I think that one of the only ways that they're going to be able to do that is, I think a third of the people that are talking to us now that are most desperate just never got any money because they never had the interview. So that's, after I champion the return to work date situation, I think, now it's time to focus on these interviews and the people that haven't got anything because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think a question I keep hearing all the time too is with weekly claim certifications, if they're not able to see it, Colleen's question below, if they can't file for weeks they missed. I believe that this was supposed to be fixed last week. The Department of Labor tweeted something that you should now be able to file for previous weeks and not have to wait another day. Have you guys seen anything different?
So they are actively reopening web certs to a certain extent for people who have missed them. There is and it's not a perfect system, but you can file by telephone. But again, we've seen issues where the telephone and the beacon system don't sync up. So it's, it is problematic in that way. I think that that is another kind of piece that I would like to see more clarity. They're, from what I understand, they're doing they're batching those files and basically importing them over, but it takes a period of time for Beacon to reflect those.
Okay. And then I've seen this too for PUA. They've been approved for the base pay of 176. They want to know how to get that fixed, and I think that has to do with uploading more documents, right?
Well, the base pay, the 176 is that's your minimum, and basically until they process your payment, it's going to reflect until they get to your actual account and process those documents and kind of figure that out. You're not going to have that adjustment. I have seen it get adjusted with some PUA applicants, but it really is going to just stay that way until they get your application. Again, a large part of this is a waiting process, and it's super hard because we're all impatient and we're all stressed. But unfortunately, it's kind of a waiting game.
I agree. I feel like it's definitely a waiting game, but it's more so segued into the new Maryland lottery. You have no idea when it's coming, who it's coming, how it's coming. You don't know anything. So at the bottom line, I wouldn't care if it took 6 months to figure out the problem. Where's the roadmap to the benefits? How are we supposed to be calm and patient and all these things if we have no idea when to or how to expect these things? We need help. There is no support. People are understanding, but the greatest distance between two people is miscommunication. So we have these groups that are great resources, but we're going off of our personal journeys, our personal stories through unemployment. We really don't know when it's coming. We have no idea.
And to piggyback both of those comments, the biggest gap is acknowledgement right now. People they just wait to find out, and the best we can do is offer anecdotal evidence that that the situation is going this way or that way based on what we've seen so far. But I don't see why they can't have 30 different claim statuses that are very explicit.
Right.
We still haven't talked to your employer. We still can't confirm your your proof of income. What is it? Was it a claim cert miss? Like, we just don't know. And then it starts this big cycle of desperation where you start emailing everybody in the state senator that has a maryland.gov email address or whatever. And it just makes it more and more cluttered for everybody. And it could start with just a team that goes through and just acknowledges, says, this is your issue and this is your group to get resource. But it just seems right now that nobody knows what's going on, and it's snowballs panic.
The Secretary of Labor touched on this in the briefing last week. Unemployment wasn't supposed to be brought up, but it was, because obviously this is a big issue. And she said that some of their challenges are going through the duplicate claims because people are trying so many different emails that they may resolve it, but then they're putting in the effort again through a different email. So I know, you just want to get through any way you can. Do you have any, advice as far as, trying the different phone numbers, trying the different emails, just any way you can? Because if you're not receiving your money and you don't know what the problem is, that's kind of the only direction you can go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We got to find the right department. There's some very, very specified email addresses for specific types of concerns. I know as we go, all these email addresses get shared so many times. Personal people emails, they've already turned those off, a lot of those inboxes, and some of the shared inboxes aren't really working out either. But just know, if you know what your problem is, just try harder to go towards that department. Doesn't help that no one's at work to answer that phone box, but the first thing, like I said, try, UI.bulk claim, for example. If that's your issue, go there. And then we can try to point you somewhere else if none of that works out.
Stephanie, have you seen success stories on your
Absolutely.
page?
I mean, at least 10 a day, the ones that are really grateful that have been on the page for the last 2-3 months. But for the most part, it really just seems to be, like I said, the lottery. A lot of times it does involve direct email addresses. Like me personally, I didn't even realize, I mean, I have seen like there's always a poll or some sort of, petition trying to get somebody to do something. And I know that Tiffany Robinson had been in one, but I saw, she had responded to an email. So I sent her an email on Friday. And I wanted to personally see the email route and see if it works or if it doesn't. But for the most part, like Ms. Jones said, you want to go ahead and try to reach out to your delegates. You want to try to hold your county, your actual people in power in place accountable. Reach out to them, let them know your stories. That seems to be a route that works as well. Now, of course, it's not going to work every time for everybody because there's such a high volume of persons trying to do the same thing at the same time. Like if Dave were to say, hey, hit this number right this second, it's going to be busy in 30 seconds. So it's hard to give somebody direction as to what to do. It's literally like hit or miss each avenue that you can take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I just want to give Stephanie mad props because we have like almost 5,000 people in our group. Stephanie has 20,000 people in her group. I don't know how you do it, girl. I don't know how you do it.
I have 5 very solid admins. They are real.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, again, Mallory, to add to that, I would just say that, basically what I do is I give people a list of numbers that I've seen successfully used. Those numbers you have to call, you have to redial, you have to be consistent with it. You can't just try once, you can't just try twice. You have to try hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, starting at 7 a.m. You will get eventually put on hold. You will get put on hold. You stay there. It may be 2 hours. It may be 4 hours. It may be 6 hours. But you've got to keep trying that and be consistent. The email those folks, and then email your delegates. Those are the 3 action items that I am telling people. And if they execute on all of those every single day for a week, they'll eventually get to something or someone, I believe. Now, I know plenty of people who haven't, but at the same time, I know plenty of people who have. And so, I think it's just taking that personal responsibility, making it your job as much as you possibly can, and just working at it.
Yeah, and I just want to go ahead, Tim.
Ladies first.
I just wanted to, one of the questions was about direct deposit, and we talked about this earlier. We have been told that it was in the process before the pandemic hit, but then last week at the briefing, Secretary Robinson said again, they're working on it, but she doesn't think that it'll be in place during the pandemic. I saw a lot of people commenting that other states have it. It probably would be wonderful to have right now, but we haven't heard that it will be happening anytime soon. So just to answer that, but go ahead, Tim.
Whatever. I'm sure there's reasons. I think they need to. Whatever. So I think they need to give us tracking information on the debit cards so that we can see where they are in the mail. I think that would just pacify a lot of people that just need to know if it's actually coming, where it is, what's going on. The USPS service only tells you what's out there today. So just something, it's in Kansas City, Missouri, great, whatever. Just nice to know that it's moving. I forget what I was going to say though. Oh, my hottest tip to get through is to call one of those, either the 877-423-4125 or the 410-949-0022, somewhere around 6:30. So you get the ring, you get the male voice, and then you wait until exactly 7 and then press 1 for English. That seems to be working for some. Not guaranteed, but as Dave said, the earlier the better. Once they get, each agent gets 40 people in queue. You know, it's about a 3-hour time to get through those 40 people. And they're just grabbing one more person at a time. So the only time that you have a chance against 40 people is in the beginning. Otherwise, you're trying to take a chance for that 1 or 2 slots.
Hey, Mallory, can I address the question that's on the screen right now?
Yes, please do.
So, you can see the question, what if it's time to go back to where you still haven't received your card? So I've been assured that people will be awarded those benefits. So you will be awarded your unemployment. And yes, it should be back paid through that period of time. Now, I know there's been multiple different issues with back pay. Unfortunately, from what I understand, the only way to fix those, again, is by calling. That could be a number of different reasons. It could be because you answered a question wrong. It could be a number of different, it could be a return to work situation. Again, Tim worked really well in working on that return to work. And they have kind of helped solve that issue. But I think you really do have to just be mindful of calling, if for some reason you haven't received that back pay.
The more important, don't stop your certs too, because that's just going to mess you up later on once it does catch up. I know a lot of people are starting to give up, but please don't stop doing that certification. Keep fighting for your money, but you're not gonna get it all at one time eventually if you cause yourself any kind of interruption.
That was a question earlier, what to do if your web cert says active, but no payment has been issued yet. So like you said, keep filing. But in your guys' experience, what's been, kind of the top 3 issues? I know return to work was definitely one of them, but is there any other common issue that you guys are seeing?
Return to work is definitely the top one. Outside of that, you see sometimes, like, if they needed some sort of, like, personally myself, I missed my initial web cert. So I had to then file another claim, and then you don't get any sort of like, hey, yeah, you've been approved. You just get a number saying what you would get. You don't get any type of, like, he's been saying the card, you have no idea when it's coming, if it's coming, if you should keep claiming, if you shouldn't. So it's just like, it's more so the guessing game in your own mind starting to play tricks on you because you have no idea what's going on, that you start to create other problems or even drag in stuff that has nothing with what's going on currently. You just don't have any updates to know what's happening.
Yeah,
so,
and that is the psychological piece is huge.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I think that from my perspective, I think the interviews is a big one. If we can find a way to speed those up, I think a lot of people, I agree with Tim. If we can figure out that process, return to work is still a continuing process, but I think by and large, people are working on that. What I'm concerned about most right now is that people who are missing web certs or they can't access the system, and then basically, it's no fault of their own, and then they're not getting, those web certs back in. That's problematic. I've also noticed that people are getting like severance pay, or they're working maybe over their limit for 1 week, but then those hours are decreased the next week, and they're completely shut off from their benefits. And so having to go back through the whole process, I think it can certainly be more streamlined in that regard. Or like Stephanie was saying, like just being clear in the communication of how to handle these different idiosyncrasies of the system.
Tim, I also want to bring up return to work with you because you've been leading the charge, I feel like, or at least you brought it up in the hearing which was helpful. And so Vicki had a question. If we put a return date on our application and we are still not back at work because our restaurant isn't open yet, do we get the extended 13 weeks automatically, or do we have to reapply?
The 13 weeks thing is completely unrelated to your return to work date. That's an extension of people that have already gotten 6 months of benefits this year. There's no 10 or 13. There's no magic number there. But it also doesn't matter what you put in your application. It matters what your employer did. So the whole process here is that I work for Dave, right? Dave laid me off because of this thing. And this is hypothetical. I don't work for Dave. But Dave laid me off. So I put in information that says, Dave laid me off because of this thing, and then here's my anticipated date. So then Dave has a program called SIDES, Separation Information, blah, 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 where he goes in as an employer, and he puts in his take on the information. I laid Tim off, or I fired Tim, and he's never coming back. So when there's a mismatch, that's when they have to do the interviews. When the reasons don't match, there's other reasons why you could get an interview, but if it doesn't match, then we have to talk, and that's when we have to fill out more information. But if he has selected temporary layoff or disaster-related layoff, then he puts a date in, and that is the one that they use to stop paying you if they do, and that's the one that's been waived. So I think that if your return to work date is in the last 10 days or so, then it's a non-issue now. I would still possibly have your employer send that letter that just lists everybody's social and full name that says, hey, this date is indeterminate right now, so that they can switch that off instead of going 2 weeks at a time and keep having to update it. So I would say that would be your course of action, is to have them contact.
And that letter is in the files tab in the Baltimore Restaurant Relief Group Facebook page, correct?
There's also some official ones on DLLR site. It's kind of hidden, but I can come back to this comment thread and throw it in there so that employers can feel like they just didn't get Tim's letter. They got something from DLLR.
Mm-hmm. Can anyone speak on?
So
go ahead.
I'm sorry, really quick. My one of my admins had just jumped in the comments, and I just wanted to be clear really quick. So DLLR did not respond to the interview or opportunity to be here today.
Correct. I reached out to them twice last week. No response, nothing. I tweeted about it this morning. I said the invitation is still open. Nothing. So they were invited.
Okay.
We wanted.
Yeah, their next questions are what can we do to get their attention or to get some insight from them, because they're really appreciative of everybody being a resource and everything like that. But at some point, somebody has to be held accountable, and we just want to know, from your opinion, obviously having a closer insight to everything. Do you have a suggestion on something that we can do to kind of get a response from them?
I would say to keep messaging your elected officials. I haven't heard the Secretary of Labor. She hasn't responded to any media requests, I want to say, for the last 3 weeks at least. But she is still in these briefings with the elected officials. Senator Klausmeier, who is leading a subcommittee on unemployment, I would continue to message her. Senate President Bill Ferguson, Speaker Jones, let them know that this is an issue that you're still dealing with. And I think they are aware. Like they said, I think the Department of Labor is aware. And also Senate President Bill Ferguson, for people who are just joining now, he mentioned that their focus is getting people the benefits they need, but down the road, they will start asking what happened and when and how could this have been avoided. And we'll continue to report on it as well.
Yeah, and Mallory, you've been doing a great job at reporting on it. And I think that, the reality is that there have been Department of Labor folks who have, tried to help in different ways. I think the problem is there's just such a volume of requests and a volume of people that it just becomes I think there was like Stephanie was saying, you can email Tiffany Robinson. You know, you can email any of these people in Department of Labor. Whether they get back to you is another thing, but they're all getting these inundated with these emails and so on and so forth, that it's hard to, I think, get through to them. And, you know, I've had conversations not directly with Tiffany, but some of her, you know, some people in her offices and ancillary offices. And, you know, I mean, they're all trying to help. It's just the onslaught of these, of the myriad of different issues, and every single one is different. And so it's not like things can just be shifted. The return to work date was a big one. Opening back web certs that have been missed was a big one. They're listening to us. And Stephanie, I want to talk with you later because, you know, we could share resources together in order to help that stuff. They're listening to groups like this and listening to admins and so on and so forth who are seeing larger trends. You know, I think if you remember, Stephanie, back a couple of weeks ago, like we got that double Bank of America payment, right? There was like a double payment, and you know, they were alerted to that. You know, I emailed a couple people, and they were alerted to that, and you know, so the reality is like they're paying attention to these groups and they're paying attention to what we're trying to do, but it's just like it's a lot, you know, it's a lot to manage. And it's like when you have your day in, day out kind of situation, you know, it's hard to say to take one person and be like, cool, I'm going to figure your situation out, because every situation is totally different.
I agree.
I don't know how it will be received, but I'd like to think that someone from the DLLR is listening. Consider opening up a volunteer force. Like I personally, if I could supplement physically their call center numbers right now, I would do it. You know, like I would. And I think there's a lot of people that would
You'd be so good at it too, Tim.
To help them out. I just think that there's like, if they're worried about hiring more people, like there's a lot of people that are willing to help, you know, their community right now. And if that's a possibility, let's do it.
I do have to say that Sagitech has been responsive to some of my emails. You know, they did an interview very early on, but they had said that in June they were going to launch a live chat function, and it's not what's on the website now. That's a robot. But if they do actually implement this live chat function, then, you know, one agent can handle multiple issues at a time versus having to wait on the phone. So I'll definitely be following up with them, since June's right around the corner, to see if that actually will be rolling out.
Yeah, and again, you know, I mean, I would love to see direct deposit become a thing. Like I think that's a big piece and a big delay of getting these funds to people. So, you know, I mean, hopefully that, you know, I know Tiffany said that it wouldn't be, you know, anytime soon, but like, let's make that. I think that would be a big change and something that I would like to see happen. Because like the 7 to 10 days and relying on the mail, and they had issues, you know, I think it came out that they had issues with plastic in their factory for these debit cards. It's like, really, guys? This is 2020. Like, let's just get people money. So yeah, I mean, but at the same time, I do know that they're actively trying to work on these issues. And again, you know, I mean, it's hard to be patient, but actively, you know, put your anxiety into action is something my mother always told me. And that's what I try and do. And I know Stephanie tries to do that in her group, of giving people clear actions. This is what you can do today. Control what you can control and try not to stress about what you can't control.
Right. And Sydney commented earlier, what's up with the system update that was supposed to happen 5 years ago? I read from multiple sources that Maryland government awarded a grant for $49 million to update the website in 2015. That is true. They awarded Sagitech $49 million. However, I've also learned that there is a new contract with Sagitech to implement the CARES Act. I haven't been able to figure out yet how much money that was for. But yes, they were gradually supposed to update the system. But again, they had to implement unemployment for people who didn't typically receive it. So that was a new hurdle. And I know there are different takes on whether or not they should have launched Beacon and encompassed everyone under that one system, or if they should have had two separate systems like some other states have had. But I guess just from what I've heard from them is it was now or never for them to do that. So.
And I think Sagitech's getting dragged a little bit. CSG is the project manager on this. Sagitech's just building it out. So there's a lot of levels of people getting $49 million. It's not just to the web developer. There's a lot of hands in the pot. I found a lot of those names the other day, but I don't know.
The other thing, Mallory, that I'd like to add is for everyone who's listening, recognize this process is going to take a while. So, figure out ways that you can supplement your income in the meantime. Figure out, you are entitled to these benefits. This was no fault of your own. And DLLR knows that. They know that this is a pandemic. And they are going to try and work to, figure out how you're going to get your benefits and back pay all of that. But I think, for those folks who are filing in, mid to mid-April or even early April, it may take 2 months. It may take, initially I saw it was 5 to 6 weeks. It took me, I think, 4.5, 5 weeks to get my card finally. So, it does take a while. If it is taking you more than that, there's probably an issue with your account and you probably need to call and you need to exhaust all options in getting in contact with these folks. So, that's, if you're waiting longer, like jump on the phones, make that your job, and just have at it.
Another question I keep getting is, are they in danger of running out of money? We've been told no, that the fund is healthy and that they can take out a loan with the federal government. That's
yeah, I've heard the same thing. So don't stress about that.
Maybe not after they back pay everyone. Dave, Stephanie, do you guys have any answers for PEUC folks? Do we have any idea if that?
I have a whole post topic on my group, whereas though obviously, like I said, I had a whole wave of like 10,000 people that were trying to apply during when that opened up. So what I do in my group is we have post topics. You can kind of just log in and go there or search a word, any word, and it will pop up and you can kind of see other people's journeys through it. I know it's a little bit different. I personally don't have any experience with it. I just sometimes get in on the post just to try to be motivational. But there is a lot of resource in the group for persons that need to apply, utilizing that way. It seems like, honestly, like I'll say to Tim's kind of defense too, the system is better. I'm not going to just sit up here and beat it up and say that it's bad. It seems like those persons that applied with that second wave didn't go through as much as the first wave. So I will say that it's getting better, but we still need some sort of accountability, some sort of support. Like you even said with the live chat, it actually being a real person that will help people. It's just crazy for us at a ground level when we hear numbers like $49 million. I'm like, well, where is it? What's going on? But we don't understand the intricacies that go into creating systems that were already flawed. So we're just, honestly just here, just trying to move it along and make sure that as this develops, because as my page started as just an unemployment page, people now want to know about politics. People now want to know about other Maryland resources. So that's why we make those post topics, so you can just kind of log in and go to the page for what you want to go for, instead of it just being like a whole rant fest or whatever the case is.
Yeah, and that's part of the trouble in the page. I joined just to kind of help maintain as a resource and keep it organized, because seeing the same post again and again and doesn't kind of takes away from the resources that Dave had been providing and
Absolutely.
that folks have been providing. There's a lot of stuff out there in terms of providing food and groceries and money and grants. And, luckily Dave was able to raise 5 figures and give that back in a matter of 6 weeks. That's already been paid out.
Wow.
So hopefully that these people, as they're getting their money and getting their own issues kind of sorted out, it's nice to see some of them step up and carry the torch and helping answer the questions that we were stuck answering weeks ago, and now we can kind of focus on raising funds and organizing.
Absolutely.
It is great, and I think that it has been very good to see these communities, and again, props on you, Stephanie, for creating a similar group. I love to hear that you're being motivational in your group, because that's really the psychological piece is huge. And it's like, sometimes, if we can just serve as kind of a throughway to keep the motivation going and let them know that it's okay. We've tried to provide resources where we can, it's difficult. It really is difficult, but I do think that they are working hard to get people their money. But it is quite the process. So hopefully we can continue to work together to support each other and provide resources and get groceries for folks who maybe don't have the funds. And then, your $8,000 of back pay will come through.
Right.
Dave,
you pay it forward.
Can you talk about the fund that Tim mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so if you go to www.bemorerestaurantrelief.org, we are a nonprofit that we started a nonprofit, and we're able to start it really quickly, thankfully, to the team that I have around me. And basically, the Baltimore Restaurant Relief Fund focuses primarily on Baltimore and Baltimore County. We have raised just over $50,000 in the last 2 months, and are, basically working to help folks as much as we possibly can. There's lots of great initiatives that we're doing. That's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt from Baltimore Spirits Company that was benefiting the fund. Union Craft Brewing has helped us, and Old Line Spirits. Lots of local spots. But our goal, so we recently released a grant within the Baltimore Restaurant Relief Fund that helped 58 people with $100. We put that out there to folks. We wanted to get 100 people, and we're probably going to do another round to get to that level here soon. We're still trying. It's a very new nonprofit, and so we're still trying to figure out the best way to get money to people and help these folks and figure out what they need. But my heart really breaks when I see these stories of single moms and single dads and just families who literally $100 can be a huge difference to those folks. And so, I want to continue to help those folks as much as possible. If you want more information on that, definitely go to our website again, www.bemorerestaurantrelief.org, and you can sign up for our email, and we can send out an email every week. And again, if you're in our Facebook group, I do updates pretty consistently as well. But we're going to continue. I'm committed to really helping to support, recover, and rebuild the restaurant industry here in Baltimore. It's an essential part of our culture here in Maryland. And yeah, it's my friends and family, and Stephanie's a part of that too.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I mean, I know I get some of the most depressing emails, and people who have never been on unemployment before and just want to work and have no idea what they can do while they wait for their benefits and can hardly support their families. Tina Hill just commented, to find food giveaways in your area, call 211 in Baltimore. So that's another resource.
The Maryland Food Bank is doing some great work. World Central Kitchen is doing great work. Just look at, there's lots of district offices. If you need groceries and if you need food resources, there are a ton of food resources locally. And it's not very hard. You just Google, basically put in food resources and the name of your town, and you'll find different options for those resources. And don't be ashamed to ask. We're all in the same boat. Fortunately, I was able to find get my debit card from UI recently. But before that, I was taking groceries, we're all in this, we're on this, and we're in different boats, but it's a crazy time, and we all need to just help support each other.
Absolutely.
And for those addressing us laughing, I think that the three of us have probably helped at least 10,000 people get their money directly. These people, some of which are suicidal, hurting. If you're offended by me holding up a bottle and us having a laugh about a way to raise funds, then I urge you to kind of research the work that we're doing. It's not that we don't take this seriously.
Absolutely. And I think, we touched on this in the beginning, that a lot of people feel like they haven't been heard. They can't get through to anyone on the phones. They're not getting any response via email. So to kind of have these Facebook groups as, a support group too, to know that you're not alone, continue, join their groups, check them out for sure. Search for your question. I mean, there are thousands of posts in there now and answers. So maybe someone came across your issue and, they were able to resolve it, but it does seem like speaking to a claim center representative is kind of the best option at this point. James said he's called over 4,000 times. So any idea how many phone numbers are out there that you guys have seen?
At least 12. I mean, between the different counties and between the out-of-state numbers, that sometimes works if you have a different area code, sometimes doesn't. I mean, there's like a ton of numbers. And I think that sometimes people, when they get to the point of needing to get to a resource group or whatever the case is, they kind of forget that, we are civil servants. We are just, regular Marylanders and are going through the same thing that you're going through. It's just everybody's going to choose to handle it a little bit differently. I'm not going to do the same thing that Tim or Dave is going to do. That's what makes us such great resources through the process, is that we're all different. So, if there are 13, 12 numbers, guess what? Like Dave said, you might want to dedicate one day to a number. If you're that kind of person that just doesn't understand that Governor Hogan said that the benefits will be retroactive, because guess what? When you get your benefits, when you get to your breakthrough story, you have gotten all that you have applied for. So, and all that you have stayed diligent and done your weekly search for. So if the comfort of his words wasn't enough, then you just got to stay on those phone lines. If you feel like there's a problem, if you know you have a problem, you got to stay on the phone line, send the emails. I feel as though people who help themselves get help. Obviously, we want to be here to do as much as we can, but you have to stay diligent. You can't let your mind start to play games with you, because unfortunately, yes, you just lost your job, but you just got signed up for another one. So you got to figure out, how are you going to get what you need to get out of what we have.
Absolutely. All right. Is there anything else you guys would like to add to this chat, or, any other questions you see that you want to address?
No, I mean, I would just say, Stephanie is doing an amazing job in her group. If you're a part of, the restaurant industry, really, at this point, any industry, we're here to help in the Baltimore Restaurant Relief Group on Facebook. You can find us. I think it warms my heart to see folks like this, and I think we will continue to work together. As Mallory, you and I have worked together. Stephanie, I'm gonna touch base with you soon. Would love to figure out some synergistic ways that we could work together, comparing notes, because that's what's going to move this forward. And again, stay strong, stay positive. That's what I always say. And that's been my mantra throughout this whole thing.
Thanks, Dave. Tim, Stephanie, anything else you'd like to add?
I think, my big thing is we've maintained, we've done well. Now it's just the time for them to start looking at what issues are out there. A lot of it, the people that haven't been paid with the interview situation, they need to dedicate a lot of their workforce to going back and righting that ship now that a lot of us are, we're getting the payments we're supposed to, or at least might know our issues and how to fix those. But those previous claims that never got touched are really what I'm going to start fighting on.
Thanks.
Me, I guess I just have to say, one thing that I learned through all of this is, the state motto, which is basically gentle words, strong deeds. You just got to stay persistent, stay up in your spirits, know that you're not alone, know that if you need, that outreach in that group, just to kind of feel like you have a tribe around you that is going through the same things, they exist. Not just ours. There are smaller ones. There are bigger ones. Everybody is here just to be a resource, because unfortunately the people in place with the power are not able to on the levels that we are for whatever reason. Another thing, election is coming up. Please find out what these people care about, because had we done that, we might not be in the situation that we are. We might be, we might not. But until we start to, as people, exercise democracy for what it really is, we will continue to go through this. And my hopes is that going through this situation, all of us as a people together, we will learn and not go through it again. So just, educate yourself. Use this as a stepping stone. That's why I put do it yourself in my group.
And again, like Stephanie said, it's time to hold them responsible. That's an election year. They're going to fight for you if they want that job.
Mm-hmm.
Very good point. And we'll continue to report on it. Join their groups, search for answers there. Check our website. We have a FAQ too on questions I've been receiving. And we'll also be sure to follow up. And Tim, just to reiterate, you said kind of like the top thing right now are those interviews that people are waiting for.
Yeah.
Of course, the phone lines, obviously. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. This video will live on our Facebook page. So if anyone wants to refer back to it, feel free to. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.